Hi, my name's Father Nicholas Williams. I'm the recently appointed chaplain at Cardiff University, and I've been asked, and it is my pleasure to present a discussion, some thoughts on spiritual friendships, especially for this novena leading up to the celebration of Our Lady of Fatima. Friendship is something that we've all experienced in different ways in our different lives. Some of those experiences may be positive, some of them may be less so. And we can all, I'm sure and I hope, give examples of friendships and individuals who have really helped us, who have built us up, and that we can truly call friends, and friends that we can rely on, and friends that we can rely on their advice and support in all sorts of different ways, sometimes just being prepared to listen. And listening is important because listening is itself healing. But friendship only really has life, it only has supernatural life if it is ultimately focused on God, that God isn't absent from that friendship. In fact, rather the opposite. Friendship only really bears fruit if the individuals involved in that relationship really have an aim in their own lives towards finding God and that ultimate finality with Him in everlasting life, and that then changes the way that they view the world and they view friendship and other people fundamentally, to see in the lens of Christian tradition other people as they are loved by God. As a result, friendship, if it is to transcend the purely material and become truly spiritual, then grace must be that founding platform on which that friendship is based. The love of the other person for their own sake and not for ours. And that's quite fundamental to friendship. Do we enjoy that person's company? That's fine. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's fundamentally important. But do we also want their good for their own sake and not for ours? And a lot of it, as a lot of our life decisions and the relationships that we build up, and our career choices and the families that we enter into or come from, the end goal is fundamental to our moral actions. The end goal of our actions on a day-to-day basis is really the deciding factor as to where we are going on this pilgrimage through life. Because as soon as we forget that we are only on a pilgrimage, a journey through this life, and that we ultimately are heading somewhere else and towards God as that ultimate end, that ultimate goal, then we will find ourselves rather bereft and rather lonely, actually, and rather devoid of any purpose. So when we enter into our relationships, recognizing that reality, that we are all on a journey towards God, then that changes the way that we view our relationships and view our friendships. And again, as I say, changes the way that we direct our moral choices day to day. Dietrich von Hildebrand, he was a great philosopher of the 20th century. He proposed this idea that love is a value response. And what that means is that in our friends, true friendship is built on not the fact that we get something out of that friendship. As I say, there's nothing wrong with that, but that can't be the primary basis of our friendship. Love, truly, which has to be the basis of any friendship, has to be based on something that we admire in that person for themselves, and not any kind of feeling or social prestige that we have by being associated with them. So ultimately, there is something in our friends, they as a person, what they think, what they value, who they are in their entirety. It is that we respond to in friendship. So when we admire something about our friends, it is that aspect of them their choices and not just the aspects that they've been born with, because otherwise that's entirely superficial. If we like being around people because they're attractive and good looking just because of a matter of genetics, it's not spiritual friendship. It's just basic material. And that's something, again, that we get out of that, because we get social prestige from being seen with these attractive, desirable people that everybody wants to be friends with. That's not spiritual friendship. True spiritual friendship, as I say, is seeing something that is deeper than just the superficial, skin-deep level. It is something about who they are and who they choose to be as a moral person, as a child of God, and their compassion and the person that they have chosen to become. And it is that then fundamentally that we love and that we choose to be friends with because of that, and nothing that we get back from that. And so therefore a friendship based on a love which is purely directed to the good of the other person then is fulfilled, it is happy, and bearing that in mind in a relationship, and obviously in terms of reciprocity, so friendship has to be reciprocal. That has to be the case for the other person. You can't just have a unilateral friendship, it can't just be one way. That has to be reciprocated by them seeing something in us that they also admire, that value response for what they value in us, for the person that we have chosen to be, even though we don't always get it right, of course. But that is the fundamental basis. And that, if it is driven by grace and driven by a shared desire to get each other to heaven, which is also the basis, of course, the fundamental basis of marriage, but of any relationship, that then it is life-giving. It cannot help but be life-giving. Now, when we direct this to Our Lady, for example, we see in Luke's Gospel, when she encounters her cousin Elizabeth, and their kins, where we say cousins in the ancient world, that is just essentially a kin, a member of kin. So it could be a first cousin, second cousin, or often actually the word brother and sister in Greek also can mean an extended member of the family. So they're very tribal, and they were very close because a lot of them grew up in the same village and or the same town, and developed a close bond. But that wasn't just based on a familial relationship, that was also based on friendship and based on love. And we see that scene when Our Lady the Visitation, when Our Lady visits Elizabeth, and obviously John the Baptist kicks in the womb, and in recognition and acknowledgement of the presence of Christ that Mary is carrying. There is a dynamic between them of friendship, of true respect, and respect for each other's values, and respect for who they are as individuals. And that of course, Elizabeth's really deferment and recognition of Mary and how special and how holy she was. But the saints to be friends were friends because they sanctified each other, and they brought each other closer to God. When we have friendships where the other person is taking us away from God, that is not the basis for a friendship. And in those cases, there is absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, it's an imperative, I would say, for us to remove ourselves from friendships which are spiritually harmful for us. And that's not uncharitable. That is a recognition that, you know, we want to pray for that person if we have difficulty with them. But often, if somebody does not want to change, they will not change. And if they are dragging us down into sin, or encouraging us to do things which aren't good for us, either physically or spiritually, then we have a duty to actually seek our holiness and our salvation, and not to use those people as a project to try to improve them or try to heal them. That's their choice. That's between them and God. And those harmful friendships that don't give life are friendships that we should not feel reticent about withdrawing from. But that doesn't mean that we can't love them and can't pray for them. But we are not called to like everybody. We are called to love them. And sometimes that means loving somebody from afar. In other cases, it may mean helping somebody, but they've got to want to be helped, and they've got to want to change, as we have got to want to change ourselves and be that better person by letting Christ transform us from the inside out, essentially. Conversion, divinization, even as St. Augustine would say. And that fundamentally, and I've used a particular word throughout this several times, in fact, all throughout, consistently throughout this little chat, and that is love. And of course, the English word only has one real meaning: love is love. But the Greek has several, has at least four. And it really does differentiate between friendship love and familial affection and real true spiritual love. And the word in Greek, which is the word that our Lord himself uses in the gospel whenever he's talking about love, whenever St. Paul is talking about love, they always use this one particular type of love called agape, which is a spiritual love. It is a divine sacrificial love that loves the other person for themselves. It is also sacrificial in the respect that our relationships, if it does not involve investment from us, if it does not involve the sacrifice of kindness and putting ourselves out for that other person, it does not manifest agape. It does not contain within itself a divine aspect of that authentic reality of love that our Lord demonstrated on the cross. And that's what he wants us to do. That's what he wants us to copy, to participate in. Sacrificial love for that other person, which means to be a disciple of Christ, to put ourselves out for the mission of the church, for Christ and for other people, within reason, of course. But that's the fundamental aspect of it. And love, if it is to have any real fruits, must involve investment, effort, energy on our behalf, to love that person for their own sake and for their own good and for their own sanctification. And by doing that, as almost a secondary aspect of that, we will become sanctified by ourselves, as long as that involves grace. And grace is the life of Christ within us. It means aligning our will to Christ. It means allowing Christ to direct and guide us in our daily decisions, even in the minutiae of our daily concerns, to allow him to work through us. And that necessarily means sometimes sacrifice, giving up the things that we want to do instead, or sometimes pushing ourselves to do the things that we'd rather not do because we'd rather have a sit down or do anything else. And that inertia and that laziness of the sloth, of course, is one of the traditional 7 deadly sins. Love means action. It means putting ourselves out. And it means an authentic interior reality that manifests itself by works, by actions, by something that actually demonstrates that we are putting what we believe and that what we say into action. And only by doing that and not using people and not seeing friends as something that we just benefit from, only then can we find real fulfillment and real peace in our relationships. Anyway, I think that's enough now. I've got Holy Hour to get to, and I've got to feed the students. So I hope you have a very happy and very spiritually successful and fulfilling and fruitful journey in this 9 days. And God bless you all.